Hey everyone, hi, welcome back to my channel. So today I have little Harry with me. He is helping me out with this video, but mostly he's snuggling, and I'm totally okay with a snuggly little pup. As I talk about the Pulitzer Prize for fiction, and that's actually what we're doing today. Today I'm going to attempt to predict the winner and possibly the runners-up for the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. Unlike other prize lists, this is a notorious task, a notoriously difficult task, I should say, predicting the Pulitzer Prize, because they don't do things the way that other prize lists do things. Unlike the Booker or the Women's Prize for Fiction, which announces a long list of a dozen or more books and then proceeds to whittle those choices down to a short list of 5 or 6 books and then announce a winner, which is a really fun way to announce a prize. The Pulitzer decides not to do that. The Pulitzer rather releases all of the information all at once. There is usually, though not always, there is usually a winner for the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction and a couple of runners-up or honorees. I think that's what they call it, an honoree. They just announce that, all at once. And it's because the Pulitzer is a bigger prize organization than just looking at the best fiction published in that year. The Pulitzer looks at reporting, photography, history, poetry, drama, and also fiction. And so the fiction prize is really just a small part of a bigger and larger picture. And so, they decide to release all of the information at once. So this means that the prize, the winner, is really hard to pick out, because here's who could win the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. It is for a distinguished fiction published in book form during the year by an American author, preferably dealing with American life. And so as I was doing some of my research, as I do, when I was looking at the dates, and they are literally meaning the calendar year. So the language that really gets me is the word preferably. So it says preferably dealing with American life. And my friend Jolene, in my last video where I'm talking about all of the Pulitzer Prize books that I own, she was like, that word preferably, it sounds like something Thomas Cromwell would do. It's sort of like a sneaky little thing where we could use this rule, but it's there and there's quite a bit of wiggle room because of the word preferably. So I'm like, yes, Jolene, it's very annoying, it's very sinister, it's very gray, and that is the thing that I both like and dislike about the prize. I love that the Pulitzer Prize often focuses on a book that is dealing and talking about and deconstructing and shedding light on an aspect of American life, sometimes an aspect that I've never thought about. And yet, it is not a rule that the book has to talk about American life. So we have that we have that to contend with. So now that I've done my preamble about the Pulitzer Prize and why it's hard to predict, I'm going to introduce myself. So hi, I'm Shelly, and I am so glad that you are here and clicked on this video. If you love books and reading, then you are at the right place, and I would really encourage you to subscribe. I have been very interested in prizes this year, and so if you are particularly a fan of prizes and you like following them, then I would really encourage you to subscribe and stick around. So how did I generate my list? Let's just get into my methodology, if that's what you want to call it, and then I'll get into the categories. There will be timestamps so that you guys can navigate through this video, but let's just get into my methodology. So as a librarian, I fastidiously searched through a whole bunch of different databases in order to look for highly reviewed books by reviewers. The reason why this is really important to me is that book reviewers, they have this magical thing called a star, and a book reviewer can give basically a thumbs up by sticking a star on their review, saying that this book is a really wonderful book. And individual book reviewers will go and read the book and individually decide whether they want to give a book a star. And so when I see multiple places giving a book a starred review, that's what they're kind of shorthanded for, a starred review, I mean, that tells me that 2 readers who read professionally and critique books professionally read that book and walked away with a good experience. Whoa, I just moved my camera. So I'm looking for books that really had a good reading experience for people that didn't come together and, you know, decide that this was a good book and they wanted to give it a star, that they individually came to that conclusion on their own that this was a good read. So that's one of the things that I'm looking for. I also looked at individual book reviewers' websites, and I looked at their best of, worst of lists. Let's be real, I mostly looked at Steve Donoghue's website, and Steve Donoghue was our resident book critic here on BookTube, and I looked at his website because he actually often names the a Pulitzer winner or the Pulitzer honors in his best of lists on his blog. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm gonna link Steve Donoghue's blog down below. I'm gonna link his channel down below. I just really enjoy his commentary and his perspective on books, especially new releases. So I basically have a four-pronged approach to my categories, and we'll get into my categories in just a moment. So my list, the books have to be published in 2021, and they have to be published by an American author because them's the rules. I also looked for books that were dealing with American life because the wording does say preferably, and I was looking for books that were highly reviewed because it has to be a good read, right? You don't want to make a Pulitzer Prize winning novel a bad read. And then I have kind of like my categories. Here are my categories: a triple winner, a double winner, a debut winner, a posthumous winner, books with buzz, and then Shelly's picks, okay? So let's just get started, all right? So my first category is a third win. So this author had a book published recently, and he is a two-time winning Pulitzer Prize winning author. And let me tell you for sure, if the Pulitzer decided to give this particular author the Pulitzer Prize, I promise you the headlines would read, first time ever triple Pulitzer Prize winning author, and that is Colson Whitehead, and it is for his book Harlem Shuffle. And as the title would probably lead you to believe, the book is set in Harlem in the 1960s. It's about shady cops and sort of gangster life and icky pornographers, and I think it reads a bit more like a mystery and suspense novel than his other books do. But I could just see it now. If the Pulitzer really wanted to make noise, to make headlines, whatever it is, I could just see Colson Whitehead wins for a third time. What does that mean? So though a third winner has never actually happened, double winners have happened 4 times. So in the almost 100 years that the Pulitzer has been awarded, 4 authors have won the Pulitzer twice, and that would be Booth Tarkington, William Faulkner, John Updike, and Colson Whitehead. So these authors have won the Pulitzer twice, and so I started looking around to see which authors who have previously won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction had a book published in 2021. So I'm going to go through that list now. The last name I'm going to say is the one that I actually think might win for a couple of different reasons, and so I'll make sure to leave that to last, okay? So the first previous winner that had a book published in 2021 was Viet Nguyen, The Committed. Now, I actually don't think this will win because it is a second installment in a planned trilogy, and I just don't think that second installments in a trilogy do very well, with the exception of Bring Up the Bodies by Hilary Mantel. Okay, so I don't think that Nguyen is going to actually win. The second winner that published a book last year was Jhumpa Lahiri. She won for the book called The Interpreters of Maldives, I believe, and her recently published book was The Whereabouts. Now, I actually don't think this will win because it is set in Italy, and I believe it is about Italian life, but she is up for a possible second win. Our next author who has previously won is Anthony Doerr for his book Cloud Cuckoo Land. He previously won for All the Light We Cannot See, which I haven't read, but his book Cloud Cuckoo Land, I actually don't know if it will be favored for a win because I don't think that the book fits the brief of it is about American life in some way. From what I know about the novel, there are multiple narratives going on, sort of woven together to make a stronger, bigger narrative, and only a couple of those narratives are about or set in the United States. So I actually am not sure if it will fit the brief. Okay, our next author would be Richard Powers. He won for The Overstory, the book about trees. I meant to get to that, and it is a mammoth. If you know me at all, I'm kind of sick of reading mammoths right now, so I won't be getting to it anytime soon. But his book Bewilderment came out in September of 2021. I believe it was on the Booker's long list for their prize, the Booker Prize. And I'm not really sure about this novel. I know it does deal with American life, but I think it is more about the relationship between a father and his son. Next up, we have Elizabeth Strout and her book, Oh, William. Now, I actually don't think that Elizabeth Strout will win for the same reason that Nguyen probably won't win. And it's that Oh, William is based on a previous book that she wrote. So it's a bit of a continuation of a book she already had published. Similar to her book that actually won the Pulitzer, which was Olive Kittredge, and then she had a follow-up book called Olive Again. I feel hesitant to say that a sequel will win, if that's what you want to call it. Now we come to the author that I actually think might have a shot of winning the Pulitzer for a second time. First of all, it would be the first female. If she won, she would be the first female to have won 2 times. I think it would be a huge statement because, as I'm going to give it away, this author actually won the Pulitzer last year, but her new novel is one that actually has been buzzed about, in my opinion, a bit more than her novel last year that actually won. And I think it does fit the brief. She talks about COVID and bookstores, and it's very much set in the US. And so I think that this author could win. And that would, if you already figured out, that would be Louise Erdrich, with her book, The Sentence, which I actually have. I'm going to show you. All right, so here it is. This is my favored to win. If there were an author to win twice, it would definitely, my cards would go to Louise Erdrich. I mean, wouldn't it be exciting to see a female author win the Pulitzer for the second time? For the first time, though. I mean, she'd be the first female author to win twice. To me, that is really exciting. Moving away from possible second winners to a posthumous winner, I was looking at the Pulitzer and how they do have a history of awarding the Pulitzer to an author who has passed. So this has happened all of 3 times. The first one is the 1958 win, James Agee's A Death in the Family. This also happened in 1963 with William Faulkner's The Rivières, and it happened in 1981 with John Kennedy Toole's A Confederacy of Dunces. So as I was looking around, there was a very, very highly reviewed book that could be awarded posthumously. And actually, I have a bit of a connection with this book. I actually pre-ordered the softcover, which, who am I? I never pre-order things, and it is a book of short stories. So what? I mean, like, I'm breaking all my rules and all of my reading tastes for this book that I've already ordered. And the book is Anthony So's After Parties. And so this book, my connection with it is that Anthony So grew up in Stockton, California, which is where I grew up as well. And so I am very, very curious as to what an author that was living recently had to say possibly about Stockton, because I have a very complicated relationship with Stockton, California. The thing that I came up with last year was in the fight of good versus evil that exists in Stockton, California, evil is always kind of winning, and it's a thing, and so I am genuinely curious as to what Anthony So might have to say about life in Stockton, at least when he was living and growing up, which would be absolutely fascinating. The Pulitzer Prize also has a history of giving an award to a debut author. So this happened a couple of times in recent years, and that would be, so like in 2010, Paul Harding's Tinkers won, which was really, really unusual. It was a book that was very off the radar for most readers. And also in 2016, Viet Nguyen with The Sympathizer, who I've mentioned recently, won, and that was his debut novel. Also, most famously, To Kill a Mockingbird won the Pulitzer, and that was her only novel, Harper Lee's only novel, for a very long time. So I wanted to pick a debut novel, and my debut pick is going to be Honorée Jeffers, The Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois. I actually have a history with Honorée Jeffers. I have read her work before. Now, she is a debut author for fiction, adult fiction, but she has books of poetry out there, and she has children's picture books out there. Children's picture books are kind of my thing, and I have read several of her picture books that are really, really gorgeous and absolutely heart-wrenching. Her knack seems to be writing about African American history, and we get that with the love songs of W.E.B. Du Bois. So I think that this might actually have be a really strong contender for the Pulitzer, also because it fits the brief so well. She is exploring African American life in this book. It is a huge book, it is a family saga, and it's being really well received. So yeah, she's gonna be my debut author pick. Another trend that I noticed with the Pulitzer is that they like to choose books that have quite a bit of what I'm calling buzz, so books with buzz. This means that this is not the author's first novel. This is probably a novel with a very well-developed author who's got a large body of work out there that is well known, like the name is known among readers. This is something that I've noticed, so I came up with a list based on that. And the first one, I actually don't know how this author hasn't won yet because his body of work is so well known, and that is Jonathan Franzen's Crossroads. This also fits the brief about being about American life. What am I saying? About American life, because it tells the story of a Midwestern family, and it's like a multi-generational family saga that starts with the Vietnam War and moves all the way to the 2020s. And this is supposed to be the first book in a massive trilogy, and I think it has the potential to win. The next book with buzz that I came up with was Maggie Shipstead's Great Circle, which I have read. This is mostly set in Washington, and I think that it's just one of those books that keeps popping up, and I just wouldn't be surprised if it pops up for the Pulitzer as well. Okay, so the next book that has gotten quite a bit of buzz and could possibly fit this brief would be No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood. Yes, this book was published back in, do I have it? February of 2021, so it does qualify according to the year. And I think it's just weird enough, and it has had just enough buzz that I think the Pulitzer could possibly name this as maybe not the winner, but like as an honoree, and it would make a lot of noise, and I think the Pulitzer sometimes likes to do that. My next category has 3 books, and they are titles that I thought fit the brief particularly well. The brief of being about American life in some way. The first one is Rabih Alameddaine's new book. Now, if you know anything about my channel, Rabih Alameddine, he wrote An Unnecessary Woman, and that was my favorite book of 2021. And so this author came out with another book called The Wrong End of the Telescope. And here's what it is about. I'm going to read the first sentence of the Library Journal review. And it is, a Lebanese doctor living in the United States journeys to the Greek island of Lesbos to help out a refugee camp at the behest of her best friend. And I thought this would be a really interesting take on American life because you're getting the perspective of an American going to a refugee camp and then dealing with some of the constraints and the immigrants that are being displaced at the time. And I thought that's a story that I haven't read about and I haven't heard, especially one from an American perspective. The final book is kind of a one that I hadn't heard of, but I thought, gosh, that fits the brief really well. And it's called Ramadan, Ramsey, and this is by Louise Edwards, and this is what it's about. So it says, when Ramadan Ramsey, the son of a 9th generation New Orleans African-American and Syrian refugee, turns 17, he sets off to find his father he has never known. An adventure-filled journey takes place from Nola to Egypt, Istanbul, and finally Syria. And I thought, man, a 9th generation New Orleans African-American, that is a perspective that I haven't heard before. And this was highly reviewed by a lot, all the people, Booklist, Publishers Weekly, and Kirkus. And I thought, that sounds like it fits the brief pretty well. So that's going on the list. My final category is Shelly's picks, and I couldn't really quite connect these to the brief super well. I also couldn't quite connect them to like an author that should win, but mostly these 2 books showed up on Steve Donoghue's website. They sounded really good to me. They're books that I want to read, and I think Steve Donoghue has like a knack for naming the Pulitzer winner. What are you doing watching my video? You should just go head over to his blog. But yeah, so there are 2 books on there that I thought, maybe they'll show up in some way or another. The first one is this. It is The Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Agee. Now, according to Steve, this book has more heft than anything else that the author has ever written. This is kind of a magical realist book about sorrow and grief and mental health and a whole bunch of different things. This doesn't fit the brief because it is not really about American life. Not that I've read it. It is not about American life in some way. And so I don't know if Agee is really shedding any type of light on American life, you know. But I just thought, I don't want to pass up like a solid book, a possible solid read, and one that might just make it into the Pulitzer in some way or another. Okay, my last pick is definitely a weird one, but I have a justification, okay? I have a justification. This author has been a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize, and it is her latest novel. It is Joy Williams in her book, Harrow. So this is what the book is about. With her mother missing and her boarding school closed, Kirsten searches the post-apocalyptic landscape until she reaches a resort on the shores of a putrid lake. So this is set in like post-apocalyptic the US, and the US is no longer the US, it is different, and Joy Williams sets it in this sort of post-apocalyptic setting, right? Oh gosh, my words are not making sense. I need to really wrap this video up. Now, I thought this could be like a Cormac McCarthy The Road situation. The Road is also kind of a dark post-apocalyptic tale by Cormac McCarthy, and it won several years ago. And I thought maybe the Pulitzer will go for something kind of weird, something off the cuff, something off the cuff, something more like The Road. And so this is my kind of weird pick. Okay, you all, so May 9th is the big day, the big announcement. These are my predictions. I would love to know what you think might win that also fits the brief, or just books that seem to fit the brief well. I'd be really curious about that. But yeah, that's it for me. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching and spending this time with me. I really, really do appreciate it. And I will see you all in my next one. Bye, guys. Another book that got just